Story 1. Where do I begin? I regret not valuing how effortless my life was when I was younger. No bills, no significant responsibilities, just having fun all day. I took that for granted. I wish I had appreciated my health more, too. I could eat whatever I wanted, stay up late, and bounce back as if nothing happened. Now, I need a week to recover from one lively evening. And let's not talk about all the free time I wasted. I could have learned a language, picked up an instrument, or at least had more social interactions. Instead, I spent it watching reruns and playing video games, foolishly. Oh, and my parents. I didn't realize how good I had it until I moved out. Free food, clean clothes, and people who genuinely cared about me. I should have been kinder to them instead of being moody all the time. Honestly, being young was wasted on me. Story 2. These posts constantly creep up in hopes younger people will listen. But who isn't listening is us. We aren't old, we just think we are. Every 10 years, we look back at our younger selves. How about this time, this post, we stop looking back? You are young now. Story 3. Time with my grandparents. I was just so overwhelmed and couldn't see how much they loved me, wanted me around, and protected me. I wish so badly I could tell them both that they changed my life and thank them for everything, and how I miss Grandpa playing his trumpet in the morning and at night. I miss the way my grandma's hug felt, and her adventurous cooking, and watching Are You Being Served? With them after dinners. I wish I had understood that time isn't something you can get back. And when they're gone, there's just an empty space where they used to sit on the couch. Please don't waste your time with people who love you. Sounds obvious, but it wasn't to me. Story 4. Doing things with my mother while she had the physical energy was important. So many "we'll do it next year" moments. And you just keep putting it off, and then your mother is older and living with stage 4 cancer, and you realize all those big dreams you put off may never become reality. Story 5. That fear is easier to overcome than I imagined in many of my situations. It held me back too much, led to anxiety, and playing it safe. I let go of fear in the last 5 years. Doing so, I doubled my income, increased satisfaction in life, care less about what others think, and found more rewarding relationships. Story 6. When money wasn't really about numbers, but more about whether something felt expensive or not. I think when I was younger, I didn't really think about how hard it was to earn or manage. Story 7. The reservation can be seen as an Eden if you have the eyes to see it. That's what I see the more time I spend away from it. The paradise that my relatives see when they go back is something that I wish I saw when I was growing up. I've been running from town to town, house to house, hotel to motel for about 5 years now, knowing little about permanence, little about regularity and peace. Just a few weeks here, a few months there, run away, over and over. I think about home. I think about the guns and the deep freezer. Think about all of the bass fishing, the whitetail, the mule deer, the bison, the elk. I rarely romanticized the killing of animals. It wasn't something to romanticize. It was cold and miserable a lot of the time. It was hard work gutting and hauling a dead deer. Hunting was hard, but we had it in droves. When I moved to the city, all I found were clear streams. Good hunting and good fishing didn't exist for regular people. You had to know someone who knew someone. Back home, our lakes were heavy with bluegill and bass. Our rivers were heavy with catfish. I remember Grandpa always cleaning fish. Now looking back, I see dollar signs saved. I look back at all of it and think about how affordable it was. I think about putting an animal in your sights and making the earth shake with the pull of a trigger. I think of aiming an arrow above a deer and letting that thing fly up in an arc. Think of the sound of it piercing its skin and chest. Think of how shaky I'd get once the adrenaline dump wore off. But it's more than that. The resources available were something I regret not using. Free community college. If you got tribal housing, you wouldn't pay much more than $200 a month. Yeah, the neighborhoods weren't great, but they weren't terrible. And you had free healthcare. Sure, you had to live and raise a family in rural nowhere, but living in a city across the country with no healthcare, no money for school, no career, yeah, the older I get, the more I reject that notion. The people suck, though. Can't wait for more of them to die off. Whenever my community is sufficiently pruned by poverty and addiction, I'll go back. My cousins from the city look at the reservation with eyes that see paradise. They see it that way because they didn't grow up there. All I remember is being scared every weekend, every payday, every holiday. I remember being on alert all day, every day because it could always go to chaos at any moment. Even if you or your family weren't being irresponsible, someone in the family was. And it wasn't uncommon for someone out there to start trouble, get their consequences, get in car wrecks, end their own lives, etc. I envy my city cousins and their lack of attachment to the reservation. I wish I could live that way, if only for the affordability. I don't have health insurance, no job, no education, few friends, no future, no vehicle, nothing. I don't have the isolation and peace from back home. I can't walk to the river and be alone whenever I want. I can't enjoy the blue light from a full moon. The skies are all a hazy orange here, and there are no stars out here. Oh well, got to do what you got to do. Plus, everyone from back home is hooked on meth, so no thank you to that. Story 8. Being unaware of my body. As long as I did not hurt myself, I would not think about it at all. Being with legs widely spread at the beach, no issue, no hairs, belly fat, or stretch marks to worry about. If people look at me, it's probably because of my cool sandcastle. Climbing a game upside down in a skirt? Who cares? Not a single thought of my underwear being seen. Sleeping in a weird position on 2 giant teddy bears? No pain at all in the morning. Sleeping on my belly? No big breasts in the way. Lying on the floor to play Legos? Sure, I will be perfectly fine there. No back pain, no struggle to stand again. Having messy hair out of the pool? Messy what? Let's dive and have fun. Leaving the house? Good. Let's go. No need for deodorant, pads, or tampons in the bag just in case of periods, and no small pads because of blood leaks. Don't care about sunglasses and no painkiller in case of a migraine. Let's go empty-handed. Not even a single look in a mirror to see if I have chocolate on my lips, sleepy eyes, or a bloody hair on my chin, bloody hormones. Story 9. How much potential I really did have. I just lacked the self-confidence. I am trying to instill that in my children right now. One in particular. The fear of failure is real for everyone, but so is actually failing. Everyone fails. Nothing worthwhile is accomplished easily. It took me almost 40 years to learn that. Story 10. My siblings and I were all trying to survive, and I wish I was able to protect them more and have had the understanding that they were suffering too. We fought over food a lot, and I was the stronger one and would take more than I should have. I know that we, as children, were put into that position by our parents, but I wish I could go back in time and fight harder for them. I was trying to survive myself, and I just hate that I wasn't able to focus on them more than myself. Story 11. Not having a heart condition until I was 18 into my 20s, I deeply miss being able to just go and do things without having to worry about whether or not I'll have a supraventricular tachycardia episode. I can't run, I can't jump, I can't do anything that gets my heart really pumping. Keep your health in check and please see your doctor regularly. Story 12. The general relative carefreeness and simplicity of life back then, mainly in high school and earlier. Not that I think anyone wants to go back to high school, but I do miss the days when only getting detention was the biggest problem you faced. Story 13. Having unfettered access to the woods behind and around my house. I'm neurodiverse, low income, mentally ill with expensive medical care in my future. I'll likely never own a home, much less own one with wooded property. I miss simple pleasures like lying on top of this cool temperature boulder on hot days, sitting in the ferns, climbing trees, looking at mushrooms, and most importantly not hearing someone with a Bluetooth speaker. Keep the wild wild, please. Use headphones on your hikes. It's the only place some people have to connect with the earth like that. Story 14. Not an answer to this question, but I'm young, 24 years old and female, and when I recently started valuing my me time. I make enough money to live on my own at this age, and I'm single. I used to dread spending weekends alone doing nothing, especially when I was recently single. But after seeing my colleagues and friends with children, I realized this is a time for me to enjoy. I want kids one day, and I may not have time for myself at all when that time comes. Story 15. Not having adult responsibilities. such as a job and bills. Having an entire group of friends that would hang out daily and do fun activities together. Having a young and fit body, full of energy with no joint pain. A thick, full head of hair. Story 16. My grandparents' life experiences. I wish I had asked and preserved their stories. One grandmother was born in 1899 and lived to 95. Think of all she saw and lived through. Why didn't I ask her when I could? Story 17. My cousin, who came out as a teen and began transitioning as a young adult, has been on an incredible journey. Our family is liberal but was still very judgmental and leveled all the typical attacks against him. They said it's a phase, he's doing it for attention, he's mentally ill, etc. None of those things were true, and his wellness and success have skyrocketed since he has found self-acceptance, healthy partnerships, and a full, happy life as a transgender man. Even though I didn't participate in those attacks back in the day, my silence makes me sick looking back on it. I wish I'd found the courage to make my support and appreciation for him well known to him and the rest of our family. Story 18. My fitness level was naturally maintained from activities I enjoyed but did not continue for a variety of reasons. Now I am older, flabbier, and somewhat overweight. Story 19. For me, it's the social and interactive aspect of browsing through DVD covers at Blockbuster, which really made the movie-going experience fun, in my opinion, before streaming fully took over. Story 20. Investing. I had a business class in high school that had an 8-week competition on the stock market where each student got $10,000 in imaginary money that went off the real stock market. This class was during the Bear Stearns bankruptcy, and a friend of mine suggested I invest in it. I put $3,000 in when it was like $2.50 per share, and it jumped to $8. I sold a lot of my other shares and used the rest of what I had and bought at $8, and it jumped to $15. Safe to say, I won the competition and was 2 Domino's pizzas richer. Apple, Microsoft, and Amazon were trading in the $20 range back then. Story 21. My body. I think most women can relate to looking back at pictures and thinking, wow, I was hot. I just wish I would have flaunted my beauty more or taken advantage of it while I could. Like wearing the daring outfit in my closet that I thought was too sultry to be seen in public with. When you no longer have the option to wear it because it doesn't fit, you realize you should have taken that chance. Story 22. Being like everyone else. As a late kid or early teen, I believed myself so special because I had more intellectual maturity than my peers, and because I was not interested in what people my age were interested in. Now, I am lying in the bed I made for myself, alone and lonely. I would slap my younger self if I could. Story 23. Lack of responsibility, stress, and anxiety. Of course, you wouldn't appreciate it. All you've known is to be a carefree child. Even when adults tell you how good you have it, it's impossible to actually put it into perspective until you've been an adult. Story 24. My grandparents. I was too young when my grandparents on my mother's side passed away. I would spend my summer at my grandpa's place because my mom was supposed to be taking care of him, but she wasn't. He would tell stories of the war, but I was younger than 10 and underappreciated his presence. I made up for it by spending as much time as possible with my other set of grandparents before they moved a province away, but it still didn't feel like enough. Sometimes when I travel to my parents, I stop at their tombstones and talk to them while crying. I miss them. Story 25. I regret not appreciating the simplicity of family dinners. I didn't realize how special it was to have everyone together until we all grew up and drifted apart. Story 26. Home-cooked meals. As a kid, I used to dislike home-cooked meals and loved eating outside. Now, as a 20-year-old living alone, I would kill to be able to eat home-cooked meals by my mom. Story 27. Summer vacations with family away from my drunken mother. The days I could walk to my best friend's house and stay for as long as I wanted. The laughs, the friend circles. Story 28. Just being a child in general, I so badly wanted to grow up when I was a kid. I couldn't wait to get my first job at 14. I didn't realize I'd be working every day for the next 60 years. Story 29. My parents and the challenges they had to face. I am in absolute awe of them. I'm nearly 40 and don't have a kid and am terrified I'll never be as good as they have been to me. I'm even more terrified of the little time they'll have with my kid when and if I have one. Story 30. Where I lived. It's so easy to find a reason to hate wherever you are at. But at the end of the day, you still live there. Might as well try to appreciate the good things about it. Story 31. My parents, I lost both of them to cancer 20 years ago. I didn't expect life to throw that at me. The longer time goes on, there is a huge appreciation and understanding for the things they had done for me before they died. I miss them. Story 32. I was always clever, but for some reason, I was ashamed of it. Being academically gifted was somehow seen as uncool. So, I dumbed myself down, goofed off, and kind of didn't fulfill my potential. I was also very fixated on insecurities about my appearance, and it's only now that I'm like, oh, I was pretty. Why did I waste so much time being sad about it? And also, why did it matter so much anyway? Story 33. Spending time with my parents. Family dinners were something else. Both my parents could really cook. Both died in the 1990s, and I still miss them dearly. Story 34. My grandparents. I wasn't horrible to them or anything, but I was just a typical child/teenager and just saw them as old relatives and not as people who had interesting experiences and skills. My grandmother could knit clothing and dolls' clothing, without a pattern and while watching TV, barely even glancing at her work. She also baked very well. I never asked her to show me any techniques, never got any tips or advice. I'd learned to knit and crochet when I was young, 7 or 8, but had given up only a couple of years later and didn't even consider it. My grandfather fought during World War II parachute regiment, I think, UK, and he told me a few stories when he gave me the occasional lift into college when I was about 17. I didn't pay enough attention. My mum was astonished when I casually mentioned it years later because apparently, he barely ever talked about it with them and used to avoid the subject if he could. I only really remember that he viewed it as a necessary job at the time and that soldiers are not automatically heroes. All that knowledge and insight from both of them gone forever. My husband has a similar regret concerning his dad, who was a lifelong farmer and incredibly knowledgeable in many aspects of farming and countryside matters. He died suddenly around 20 years ago, and almost monthly my husband will mention ruefully that his dad would have been able to help with a particular situation, or would know what bird was singing outside the window, or be able to advise about a garden/farm query, etc.